Awesome. Yeah. Just through the room. So welcome to the New Yorkers for Mental Health Alternatives, April 2024 meeting. We have a couple great announcements that I just want to share before I let Crystal and Veronika take over. Last week with the team from Reconsider, we presented the 4 stories of transformation that we screened at the Linda. And Joe McKay was there as well, and there was a little bit of a talk back, and they didn't get as full of a room as they had hoped because unfortunately, yes, it's 75 degrees out now, but that was the day that it snowed and sleeted and iced, and so they pushed the session back. But there were still, I would say, about 24 or more senators and staffers in the room. And Joe and I were actually approached later on in our wanderings through the LOB by one of the gentlemen that was there with some questions and stuff, which was pretty cool. And during the day, we met with Senator May, her staff, Senator Janaris, Senator Webb, Assemblymember Lupardo, Assemblymember Fahey, and Assemblymember Werner. And then we do have a meeting scheduled for Monday with Senator Hinchy. So half of those people were on or are on agricultural committees. So not only did we talk about the psilocybin aspect as a substance necessary for people's healing, but also as a potential product for New York farmers to be able to bring in money, and so expand the tax base for New York lawmakers. And they were really excited to hear that. And so we are planning now a Brooklyn screening and panel. So Colin Pugh from the Brooklyn Psychedelic Society, he is working on a venue. It probably is going to be in June or July. And we'll basically do a copy paste of what we've done now twice. So hopefully, Joe, you'll be able to make that one. And then we talked to Assemblymember Burke, who is out in Buffalo, about doing another session out in Buffalo. And he said that he even has a potential venue that we could use. And he's going to work to invite all the lawmakers out that way, and even the city of Buffalo councilors, or however they're governed, so that we can push reform in New York City as a city municipality, and in Buffalo as a municipality too. So, hopefully, if the state, continues to drag their feet, then we can at least make some movement in some cities like they're doing in Massachusetts. The Bay Staters have passed referendums in I think six cities now. And then Reconsider is actually almost done with a short documentary film on our advocacy efforts.
All right.
So they came to the meeting where Albany Police Chief Brendan Cox was presenting, and they filmed a couple snippets there. They filmed some parts of the Linda presentation, and then they filmed at the Capitol during our lobby day, and they filmed a couple other spots. And then they came in and interviewed Corinne and I, and he's got it almost down to the final cut. And so it'll be just like those stories of transformation, so that they can share as another tool to help bring awareness to the necessity behind creating a system for psilocybin pathway. So that is everything that I wanted to go over, to waste time to hopefully have other people show up. I am really excited to have Veronika and Crystal join us from Visionary Veterans. So visionaryvets.org is their website. I highly recommend you go check it out, and I will make sure I post it in the YouTube page link or whatever. But Visionary Veterans is a female-led, veteran-organized 501c3 nonprofit providing veterans with transformational retreats and community building opportunities. And I'm so excited to hear from the two of you about how you got involved in this. And one of the things that we want to focus on is hearing from different people about how they're creating safe settings for people. And you know, and for you guys who are creating experiences for people who have, you know, certainly experienced a lot of trauma, how do you ensure that their experiences are safe, and you know, how you work to integrate that stuff. So without further ado, you guys can take it away. Do you want to present anything? Should I share that? No? Cool, great.
Yeah, we can just start. Well, thank you for the introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Veronika. I'm one of the co-founders of Visionary Veterans, and we also have Crystal here, another co-founder. So we established Visionary Veterans in 2023. And prior to that, we started doing retreats in about 2019, holistic wellness veteran retreats. Being veterans ourselves, we noticed that we needed some extra support and more of like spiritual wellness than the VA was actually offering. So myself, I'm a Marine Corps veteran. I was a combat journalist, and I was in from 2001 to 2005. And when I got out, I was really depressed, and I was immediately, you know, given numerous medications, Ambien, you know, antidepressants, and I was on it for multiple years, just trying to cope. And it wasn't until I realized that part of the aspect that was really missing from my life was the community aspect. And so in 2009, I started my path on the Red Road. And so I started doing the sweat lodges and inipis and temazcals, which led me doing into ayahuasca and peyote ceremonies. And so from there, I started to really love and see the benefit of community healing and community wellness. And so it was really powerful. And I was like, wow, I'd love to get more veterans involved in this as well. And then, I don't know, Crystal got out of the military, and I took her to a lodge, and I was like, wow, come on in. Let's, you know, explore this alternative healing modality. And we had really profound experience. And then we kept branching and kind of exploring more and more. And one of the words that we've been using recently is rewilding. It's like, how can we take veterans and help them reintegrate back into nature and back into the elements and be more connected to source? And how can we enliven their spirit that's been so crushed by being in the military, you know? And so also being, I'm a former nurse, she's former medical as well. So we have this, you know, caretaking aspect to us. And so we noticed that we could really benefit veterans by just showing up and being ourselves in our feminine power and kind of healing from a divine feminine balance aspect. And so that includes different holistic modalities and also some plant medicines and entheogens in our retreats. And it's been really profound and powerful. And yeah, I just wanted to share that. And Crystal, would you like to say anything? I don't want to speak for you, but I'm glad you're here. We've been friends since high school, by the way. So yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah. So as Veronika mentioned, she's been walking the Red Road for over a decade. I served in the United States Army from 2002 until 2018, almost 16 years, and I was medically retired because of all the things. It's actually, I guess, a good thing that I had my breakdown while I was in the military, because I was so supported and those structures were in place for me to go to rehab, just learning my patterns and how I was using substances to numb and to distract and to just cope with traumas that I hadn't dealt with. And I ended up medically retiring out of the military, even though I had 4 years left to a 20-year retirement. My career was within special operations. I had been on 5 different deployments, and I didn't understand what was going on. I couldn't understand if it was like my ADHD or burnout or depression, but I had pretty much just exhausted everything to the point where I was so suicidal that I was putting a gun to my head I was like drinking a couple bottles of wine, or I was really lost. And Veronika and I have been friends since high school. So in between deployments or in between moves, I'd always come back and I'd meet her, and she'd always have some like cool experience going through the Red Road or just travels outside of the military. When I first got out, she took me to a sweat lodge, and I told her, you know, I've done a couple veteran retreats for like trauma healing, but all of the things that I've been through were still in that very masculine, rigid environment, and a lot of people were harmed in that kind of environment. I don't want to even put themselves in that position. And that's one of the reasons why.
Sorry, you're breaking up a little bit, Crystal, there.
Cookie
Can you repeat that?
type of environment. And
You're breaking up.
sorry guys, I don't have which hold on.
Maybe turn your video off, Crystal.
Yeah.
That might help.
Okay, how is this too? Is this
Oh,
better?
Yeah,
So much
absolutely.
better.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I'm actually doing this from my car because I'm back home and there's just no space. And honestly, I don't feel comfortable talking about this kind of stuff around my family yet. They know that I've done some stuff, but it kind of sucks that like this healing has such a stigma, and you can't really say, hey, I did mushrooms to help deal with this kind of things, you know, like that whole family trauma of like, just, we don't really want to know, we just want you to be, oh, are you okay now? And so they've seen the difference, but I haven't really like said, hey, mom and dad, I've gone overseas with a veteran group to do ayahuasca, or I've worked with a mushroom and like MDMA cocktail in a clinical setting to try to like, you know, work through some of these things. And I did all the things when I medically retired out that they told me to do. So I was working through the VA. I was on like 10 different medications. But once I found sobriety, that was really helpful. I got into yoga, started like meditating, and all of those things have been so helpful for my healing of my trauma. And just, you know, working with different veteran organizations, doing like service projects abroad. But there was still always something that I was still afraid of, that like my depression, that dark night of the soul, like just, I think I was trying to like run from. And then Veronika and I in 2021, right? Yeah, we did a psilocybin mushroom journey weekend with a DMT experience with a bunch of different veteran organizations. It was actually the first female psilocybin group. And it's been so incredibly healing for myself that now I found that my passion is to try to help people either coming out of those ceremonies to integrate back into life, to help provide spaces for people that maybe aren't ready for plant medicine, but still need to learn the tools that can help them, you know, go through those environments. And so, yeah, it's very important to me to be able to just like speak authentically and honestly about what plant medicines can do, but also what they can't do. And that, you know, the real medicine is community, and it's like showing up, and it's integration. And yeah, you can do these things, and you can connect into like really great, I don't want to say downloads, but, you know, thoughts of interconnectedness and unity. But if you can't integrate that into your life, then there's still like congruence, and then people will just keep turning to an experience rather than doing the work. And that's what I'm really passionate about, is trying to like get people in those moments where the rubber hits the road and kind of help them through that. Because I used to kind of think that, oh, this next ceremony is going to be the thing that heals me, or this is the next thing, this next skill set, or this next retreat. But after doing this for a while, I've noticed that the work is every day and showing up and finding like alignment in your actions and just being mindful and grateful and all that small, sacred, mundane things. And that's what my passion is, for creating spaces for people to feel safe and learn and share these kinds of perspectives.
And I will say that in our retreats as well, I'm a integration coach. Crystal's currently in school to finish her integration coaching. And we also work with therapists to create a safe vibe. We like the nurturing, feminine, soft, gentle spaces. So we really take a lot of care, really vibing out the space. And, you know, I like to cleanse it with copal and just make it feel really sacred and safe. And, we do our best to make everybody feel comfortable. We like to do smaller group settings if we're doing medicines, just to keep it intimate. And then I'm a visionary painter, so my niche is we offer integration via visionary painting workshops after our medicine journey sometimes. So we've been doing ketamine. Last year we did our first ketamine retreat, and this year we offered combo. And 2019 we were sharing and exploring and talking a lot about microdosing, but not so much giving a lot of medicine out at the time. So a lot of times people come to our retreats if they're curious about plant medicines. We might necessarily offer them, but we talk about them a lot, and they're really like the stepping stone to going somewhere else. We are getting into more of the medicine space this year, and we're just exploring it. But we don't think it's a cure-all either, and we're trying to be really realistic. And some people feel like they need it, and it actually can exacerbate a lot of issues for people. And so we have really sit down, and we know obviously we can't recommend anything because you know, we're not therapists per se, but we try to point people in the right direction where they can get information and do their own research, as well as our own personal anecdotal experiences. Yeah, we just keep it really open and help people feel comfortable asking questions. I've had a lot of experience trying all kinds of different medicines, from honoring them in a sacred way, and also from my past of not honoring them in a sacred way. So I have a unique perspective on what happens when you don't honor these medicines. And I'm really love to share what not to do for people so they have a better experience, you know? So yeah, I think I answered all your questions there. I'm not sure, but.
I mean, I don't know that I asked questions, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so what's one thing you often tell people to avoid?
Well, I feel like, you know, right now the big thing is, oh, do ayahuasca, do medicines. And some people feel like they just want to get high, or if they don't have a good intention behind it, you know. And I feel like I recommend people feel called to work with these medicines, and they do a lot of research prior. But if they're just jumping in, just being spontaneous, you know, that's a red flag for me without doing any kind of research. So we also just really recommend people sitting down, thinking about it, and also what kind of interactions, if they're on, a lot of the veterans are on medications, you know, so some of these medications are not safe to mix. So we need to know what people are on, and so we can kind of guide them, because we don't want any, you know, negative reactions, of course. But what would you say, Crystal?
Yeah, that was my first thought initially, was intentionality. Anything that the first thing should always be your intention. So yeah, you pretty much nailed it.
Yeah, because we have some friends that are like, oh, I want to do this, I want to jump in, and we're like, whoa, you know, like what do you need it for? Are you just trying it just to get high or just have an experience, you know? Because people do that, and they just ceremony chasers, and they chase, you know, the next event, and without integrating, like Crystal mentioned. And so
Exactly.
yeah, it's what's that one funny meme, like everybody wants to do ayahuasca but nobody wants to do the dishes or whatever. You know,
Yeah.
it's like deep hard work, you know, integrating and bringing it all back in. And how can you take these ceremonies and bring it into your everyday life so you can keep working on it and, you know, healing.
Yeah. And that's actually one thing also I'll tell someone if they're going to start doing this work, you know, obviously, you know, vet, like first be called, and then vet where you're going, because you want to make sure that's a safe and trusted environment. That you really never know, like, you know, is there a basement shaman trying to like hold the space down? The the things that are seen and unseen. And really, you know, there's been unfortunately a lot of talk about people being very unethical in their psychedelic practice when people are so open and vulnerable. So I normally, you know, recommend people go from word of mouth from someone that's already been there. Like, don't just look at their website. Also, have a plan afterwards. Like, have an accountability buddy, get a coach, do something where you're not just on your own afterwards, because that integration piece is so important. And so if you have other people that kind of get it, as you're maybe dismantling your your decades of programming, and it is a lot. And if you don't ground, that would be my biggest thing. Ground, get your feet on the earth, connect, get outside.
Well, when you say afterwards, I'm curious what kind of time scale you're referring to. Like immediately after your experience, or more like weekly following up with somebody, or?
Well, I personally don't have like a time period on it. I don't know if you, Veronika, do. I would think that it starts a practice. You need to start a daily practice, and then finding what works with your flow of your life and your schedule. But you can't just live the same life in the same environment, doing the same things, and expect your life to change because you've had a ceremony. So it's like, what does that look like afterwards? And I'm a big fan of like small incremental changes versus like wide swings where then you kind of like rebound back. That's where I talk about the accountability aspect through that. But most people that we've worked with, like, they actually become, you know, part of like a little family, and we just are all like, we keep in touch. So yeah.
I like that accountability buddy. That is a great little phrase. I've never heard that before. And Veronika, the ceremony chasers, like, what a great way to put that the idea that, like, oh, if only I can do this next thing, then everything's going to be better. Or like, I just want another experience, instead of taking that time to think about what you've gone through and integrate that into your life. Those are two cool phrase takeaways that I have so far. Does anyone else have any other questions?
I'll add something onto that. Yeah, I had, in my experiences in the past, I've had like realizations weeks and even months after the journey. Sometimes I'm just sitting at night, waiting, for it to be time to go to bed, and something will all of a sudden make sense, something that I saw or experienced during that journey. So, don't rush to find out what it is. Sometimes it comes to you over time. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you. Thank you, ladies, very much for what you're doing, making a difference.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah, I just want to piggyback off what he said, and then what your question was earlier. I mean, I think immediately after a ceremony, there's like an afterglow effect, that could last a couple of days, and that's a great time to journal and really, find some quality time to nurture yourself and just, check in and see how you're feeling. And then, as Joe was mentioning, you just sometimes months later, you'll get information. I get downloads just riding, like, especially driving home from the ceremony. If I have like a long road trip, I get in highway hypnosis and I just get these downloads like, oh, that's what this means. Or sometimes dreams, or sometimes just random anything, and it's all these little puzzle pieces. And then finally it'll all click together like, oh, that's what all this means, and so you just have to be patient. But yeah, it's not a good, easy to say a time frame, but for our retreats, we try to follow up immediately the next day or that day of, and do some sort of integration. And then we do a week out, and then maybe 2 weeks out. So we try to keep in touch, if anyone's struggling. And the thing that we've noticed too is, people leave on these highs, they're like, wow, this is amazing. I love life. Then they go back to their normal reality, and then they crash, and so how do you help them stay kind of stable after they've had this like burst of bliss, and now they have to go back to their life where, like, oh, maybe it kind of sucks here, and there's a lot of things I need to change now that I've had this awakening, and now I need to shift my whole perspective and clean up my act a little bit. So, it's a little bit of tough love in there as well. Just like learning how to evolve and grow. So yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of power in a good playlist and a long road trip to just kind of let those puzzle pieces come and work out. Um, and I think that, yeah, people are on that pink cloud and they think things are great. And one of the things that we like to emphasize during our retreats is the opposite of everyone's heard about being triggered, or, people with PTSD having a trigger, but no one talks about the opposite of that, which is a glimmer. Like, what is the thing instead of the thing that like sets you off down this downward spiral? What is like something that just kind of like sends a sparkle to your heart, your soul? And especially if you're on that pink cloud, you kind of get to like observe something in nature. It's like, can you bookmark that? Like, can you find those moments, and then how can you recreate that? And for me, my glimmer is those wacky arm inflatable guys. And so if I'm in traffic sometimes and I see one of those guys, it just makes me so happy because I just get to watch them flow. And so it's really great to just even like plant that seed of like, oh, for some people, it's like a tire swing or chimes, and then they see that. It's like you can also like reprogram yourself to find like the beauty in those little moments that when you have that pink cloud. Because my theory is, for me personally, is that you don't really know how great life is. Like sometimes we forget. And that's what I think is so great about any kind of medicine ceremony, where you kind of get past your ego and your self narratives and all of these things that keep us separate. And you get a moment where you kind of just remember how amazing things can be. And what I think is like really important is that like some people never get that point to get that place to remember. And I think once you remember, there can be some incongruence of like, now I need to find that high again. And that turns into the ceremony chasers. But I think like your soul and your body remembers what alignment or joy feels like in the body. And so it's like, how can you like find that again? And that's where I think the accountability and like the new experiences and this whole concept of post-traumatic growth, rather than, oh, something bad happens to you and here are a bunch of medicines and you'll always have this feeling, where it's like, okay, something bad happened to you and you can become bigger and stronger from that. And then you can take your lessons and feed it back. And so one of the things I really love about our small group that's still growing is that people that have gone through one of our retreats then become involved in us to help it expand. So we have a great former Army forensic chief that pretty much was in criminal investigation, seeing the very worst of what happens. And she's like a badass, like farmer, felter, makes microgreens, has alpacas. And one of the things we have that we set up community spaces for is at a place called Earth Skills. And people learn like just these very like primitive skills of just getting back to the earth and off screens. And she came back the next year after really like seeing how it was great. She came back and she taught a class. And that's one of the things that the military can be very empowering in a way of like, hey, I've never done something before. And all of a sudden it's like, see one, do one. And we have another girl who she started a travel company. Now she's helping us plan another retreat. So it's like a really great thing where it's like this regenerative, like circular thing. It's not like you just like leave and then you're like, hey, thanks. It's like you get to come back and like pay it forward and find something in your vision that like made your soul glimmer.
Love that.
Exactly. Yeah, that great way to say that. Yeah, one of the main things that we see in the military is this thing called moral injury. I don't know if you guys have heard it, but they talk about it in the VA, where you have to do a job that you don't love doing, but you do it anyways, and it crushes your soul a little bit, And so how do you combat that? And how do you evolve and grow from that? And so, yeah, one thing is giving back to community. As we, being in the service, being of service, we're used to giving back. And so when we're not in the military anymore, we lose our sense of identity and sense of community and our sense of community. And so giving back by way of helping other veterans is so empowering, and it makes every veteran feel really fulfilled. So even if veterans come and they go to these retreats, and they don't know much, or they feel like, oh, I'm just starting my spiritual path, every one of them is a teacher. We're all teachers to each other, and it's more peer-led. Yes, we do have therapists, but it's like a peer-led space where everybody feels safe to share and grow and learn from each other, which I really love. So we get little tidbits from everyone, and we all are important in this like collective healing of the group, and it's really powerful. to give everybody that platform to share, because they've learned little tidbits along the way if this has been beneficial. Oh, I tried this breath work. Oh, I did this microdosing protocol or this or that. We're constantly sharing and growing and evolving. And with visionary veterans too, we're trying to find the other like-minded veterans out there, because we're not all like wearing these like, World War II hats and shit, we're not like super blaringly obviously wearing American flag shit on us, all the time as veterans. We're radical artists, and so we want to explore that and kind of, shake it up a little bit and celebrate post-traumatic growth instead of this poor me, so sad veteran society. We're trying to be like, how can we celebrate this, lift each other up, celebrate our, artistry, our, connectivity, and just like, yeah, evolve together as a collective. So yeah, it's exciting. We're building the momentum. So it feels good.
I love that. Did you? No. I mean, you mentioned the woman who is a forensics, and the only thing I can think of is like when you're having ceremony with medicine, have you encountered someone that's having a really challenging experience there? And like, what are some skills or some tools that you've used to help them transition through the challenging experience?
Sure. So I can add a little bit to this. A lot of times before anybody goes into a ceremony, especially with our ketamine protocol, is we try to teach everyone how to, or at least have them practice meditation and breath work before they even get to the ceremony, because that's going to be their main anchor while they're in a difficult space in the ceremony to work through, is breathing and trying to get into that meditative state. So we try to ensure that people have a grasp on that before they step into this kind of space. And then when we're there, if they need some reminders, there'll be somebody there, obviously, to help them, encourage them to breathe and take a moment. If we work with specific indigenous healers, they'll do their own medicine thing, whether it be drumming or singing or incense or anything like that. So yeah, having a good foundation before you go in there, so you're like a little bit more prepared on how to navigate the difficult spaces, is really important for us. And I don't know, do you want to add anything to that, Crystal?
I don't have anything to add to that because I haven't personally been in that situation. So
Okay.
I'd rather just speak from my own experience.
Gotcha.
What you've taken people out of the country to have medicine sessions? Where have you gone, if that's something that you could talk about?
So we've just we worked with Heroic Hearts. That's a nonprofit that does the ayahuasca. So I think that's what Crystal was talking about. She did one of those, and we worked them again. They have a great integration program. But yeah, we were thinking about eventually.
Someone that I was a participant of a group that went out. Like Visionary Veterans did not have like an overseas, like, let's bring some people to go do the medicine. I think what we've been kind of focusing on is that there's a lot of people already bringing people to the medicine. And number one, we haven't really found a group on our own that we feel that like, hey, I really want to take a group of people to this place. Veronika has done most of her stuff in the Red Road, which has been here throughout the like indigenous local community. As for me, I've just been a participant of those things. And what I've found is some of the things that are lacking or that I want to like build upon is what I'm kind of put into Visionary Veterans. Because what I was thinking is there's so many people trying to get people to the medicine, and yes, that's needed, but then what? Then what do the veterans do? Like, I'm always thinking like 3 questions down the line. So then what happens? So then people go, they have their experience, they have, maybe they integrate. And then what? I want to be able to help plug people back into that service part. Where it's like, okay, you found some healing. Now, how do you help other people? And how do you do that? By finding something that is your glimmer, that thing that is your vision of how you want to give back. Because not everybody wants to be like a healer. Not everybody wants to be a yoga teacher. Not everybody can like do all that stuff. But some people can be, really good at farming. Some people could be like really good at travel agency stuff. Some people could be great at accounting and financial management. So when we talk about like holistic, I think that we really had to think about how life has all these different like bubbles. And so just like the military, not everybody's combat arms, not everybody's medical. There's all these different moving pieces, and everyone has something that they have to contribute. And once again, that whole idea of service members needing something to feel like they have service, they have place, and they have worth, that they're not just broken and in need of help. Because that is true. There's a lot of people that do need help, but then what? So after people get to the medicine, that's the place that I want to like work on, is that transition.
And maintaining healthy communities, because a lot of veteran driven communities are centered around drinking. And we're not about that. We want to build healthy communities where we educate each other and encourage each other to eat well, work out, stay active, stay in touch, stay aligned. And providing a healthy community is another thing. Building communities, like we really want to focus on that and show people that there's people nearby that they can reach out to that's a little bit more like-minded, than they would find at the VA.
So what is the state of advocacy and the current legal climate for visionary medicines in where you guys are practicing? Are you aware of what's going on at all?
Well, right now we're keeping it pretty safe, and we're just doing ketamine right now in Florida. So it's legal there. And we did it in Utah. So we traveled and had a therapist in Utah provide it.
Well, but I mean, do you know do you have the intention to work with other medicines? And like, what still needs to change in order for that to happen?
So we're open to that. We just want to really trust the facilitator and know that it's coming from a intentional, indigenous lineage, that we really want to honor that. And so until we find somebody that we really connect with and feel safe with, we haven't really, gathered a group to do that.
I think one of the limiting things that is not allowing for that to happen is, there's a lot of things that we would like to do, and a lot of it is, I'm not going to break the law to do some of that. Like, my husband's still active duty military. Like, I'm not going to put my family at risk to do something that unfortunately the government feels is not right. And so a lot of advocacy work as far as like making things accessible, whether it be through a decrim model or a like psychedelic assisted therapy, like those are the movements that are helping to make this accessible. I know the VA is starting to like look at it, but right now most people, if they want to do something that's like vetted and like through veterans, it's to go overseas. I know Washington State or Oregon, I believe, just had a psilocybin program that opened up. So it's nice to see that that's happening in the States legally. But I think, just the stigma and the legalization, like a lot of people also don't want to go from being in the military to then doing something that's like breaking the law. And so I believe that once these stories of healing and advocacy, and that it's not, reefer madness, or, you're not going to jump out of a window on LSD, those types of things start to get replaced by like good science, by people that really are embodiments of what working on yourself can then do for your community. I think those are the things that are going to have to happen. But I think that's also going to take a lot of time. That's going to take a lot of people, one, having these conversations, and two, showing that they are still driven to provide something back to the community and the collective.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. I just wonder, what I was asking is, do you know if there are groups working in the states that you're in on changing the laws? Because like, that's what we're focused on here in New York, is working with lawmakers to create an accessible legal pathway. And I know that there's only 18 states in the country, and Joe, you may know better than I do, I can't remember which ones, but that don't have at least some kind of, let's create a panel to study the efficacy and we'll talk about it, kind of situations, which to me is like the lowest possibility that something can, we're creating change, but the change is like, we're just going to have a dialogue. Okay, great. But that's still a step, you know.
Yes, absolutely. You're right. It's still a step, you know, a step behind everybody else, unfortunately, but it's still a step. But the more people that speak out about it, and the more it gets into the mainstream, the quicker it's going to change in those states where they just do research, quote unquote, research only states. But as far as how many, that's a Kevin Lenneberg question. He's the numbers guy. I don't know off the top of my head how many states have you know, that many, you know, just that type of legislation. But yeah.
Cool. Do you know what is on the books in because Crystal, you said you're in Georgia, right? And Veronica, are you in Florida then? Is that?
Currently I'm in North Carolina, and I'm not sure about any of that. Sorry.
North Carolina, I could say there is talk. I don't know if there's a specific bill, but I know there are people in North Carolina speaking to legislators about the benefits of psychedelics. As far as what's going on with a bill down there, I don't know off the top of my head.
What do you know about Florida?
Not much. I haven't heard much from Florida yet either. Yeah, I nothing to report on Florida.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, and you guys mentioned Utah. Utah actually just passed a bill that included religious use as well. And so it's a medical and religious use in Utah in a controlled setting. So it's not just like, you know, legalized and everyone can you know, use it or whatever. But like it's really there's so much change going on across the country because people like, you know, you are changing, are having the dialogue, you know, your people are talking about it. Veterans, Joe is a former firefighter, you know, and there's you know, part of the group that has been on that panel is like a middle school principal, a New York police officer, and you know, it's people like that have some clout with society that is really helping create the movement necessary to facilitate change. So yeah, did anyone have any other questions? How are you? All right. Any other questions? Veronika, Crystal, did you want to add anything else? I have a couple other things. I Noah never joined us, but I wanted to bring up some stuff that he's working on. And did you guys have anything else you wanted to add?
I just wanted to just share, you know, our website again is visionaryvets.org, and we're on Instagram under Visionary Veterans. And yeah, we have an amazing event coming up in May in Florida. It's a holistic fair. I know all of you guys are in New York, but yeah, if you have any veterans that would love to vibe with us, please send them our way. We love meeting new people. We've been building such an amazing community, and we're just excited to keep growing. So I really appreciate the opportunity to allow us to be here today. We're really grateful to meet you all and to talk medicines. And so, yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
So the only other things, there's a couple other things that I wanted to kind of, let's get the camera off Andrew there. Yeah. So the talking points cheat sheet is something that I know I've been talking about for the last, like, you know, few months. And Veronika and Crystal, one of the things that we're working on is creating basically index cards. I mean, it'll probably be virtual, but like with some tips for talking to our families, telling our parents like about the things that we're involved in and how to help create a dialogue. You know, oh, everyone's gathered for Thanksgiving. Hey, let's talk about psychedelics. Let's talk about ketamine and why it's important to do these things. So if you guys have any tips, I would love to hear them. And obviously, once we have it more concretized, we'll share it with you as well, because, you know, sharing our experiences is one of the best ways that we can help create change, because you know, overcoming the misinformation that's been spread is really important. And you mentioned jumping out a window or thinking you're a cup of orange juice for the rest of your life. It's like, that was a story. That was a thing. It was, yeah. But it's those things are. It's important that we give some honest anecdotal information, and especially with the people that we love and that who love us, because we should feel supported, because if we're hiding a facet of our lives, that can contribute to trauma, and so it's important that we are able to talk to the people that we love. Taylor didn't join in, but I am working on creating a new page for our website that's going to have all the YouTube links and a couple other media, especially like I want to dial in the Reconsider films, because they're really cool. And I guess did anyone on the call dial into that psychedelic law reform 5 years after Denver talk? I know Noah was gonna talk about it. Wendy, Joe, did you guys go to that at all?
No, I did not. I got a root canal today instead.
Well, another thing that Noah is putting together, and I don't know if it's going to be available online, but through the New York Bar Association, he's doing a psychedelic law symposium. So he's inviting a couple other lawyers and stuff in it, and really continuing to push that dialogue at the lawyer level, which is really exciting. And Joe, I saw on the Clusterbuster Facebook page a new book that came out, Psychedelic Outlaws, The Movement Revolutionizing Modern Medicine, which is about Clusterbuster advocacy. So did you see that at all?
Yeah, yes, but I can't wait for it to come out.
Yeah, so this is on pre-order right now, and it looks really cool. I read the little synopsis. It's
so the sociologist, she's a professor at Rutgers. Her name's Joanna Kempner, and she's been following our organization and has done like a super deep dive into the history of psychedelics and for the use of pain and all of the hurdles that the people that with cluster headache have to face, and just a broken medical system. She really took this deep dive, and I cannot wait to read this book. It's coming out in June. You can pre-order it on Amazon.
Cool. And then, I don't know if you caught the pre-dialogue a little bit, but I'm working on an article on pain management and focusing on cluster headaches as well. So Joe is going to be one of the people that I'm going to include in that article for the North American Mycological Association. So if I haven't mentioned it in this group before, I'm like the psilocybin correspondent for the Committee on Medicinal Mushrooms for the North American Mycological Association, which is distributed to something like 900 groups from Mexico to Canada. And so it's, the more we can share that dialogue to people who are focused on mushrooms and who have for decades disregarded, for fear of losing credibility, our blue staining friends, and have now acknowledged that it's time to talk about the impact that psilocybin containing mushrooms can have on people's experiences. So I'm really excited to be part of that as well. And the only other thing that I had to mention is that Tuesday, May 14th is our next meeting. And I'm trying to connect. I went and checked my email, and I responded, and yeah, Scotty hasn't responded yet, but our next guest speaker might be a gentleman who has started a psychedelic church out in Hawaii, and what he has done to create community there and how they create a safe setting in the context of that psychedelic church. So hopefully you'll all be able to. Oh, and he does psilocybin retreats. Cool. Excellent. Yeah. Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us, and I'll talk to you all soon.
Thanks so much.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye.